For Quadrophenia, now the first thing I start to get interested in timelines. So I wrote down who are you, which I've never had any desire to own. And obviously I know the title song. I don't know if I know another song off of Who Are You. That came out in August of 78.
Yeah.
The documentary, The Kids Are All Right, came out June of 79, and then Quadrophenia follows that by 3 or 4 months. I think there was a real attempt during this window, a year plus, where the Who are really trying to assert their place in history.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
Maybe a little delayed. The Rolling Stones they've made their big comeback with Some Girls. Not that they ever went away, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
no, for sure.
Beatles are gone for almost a decade, but I get the feeling that the Who were really interested in saying, okay, we belong in the company of the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. And I don't know what Bob Dylan was doing at the time. I guess he was doing his Born Again phase, but
Yeah.
and that might even have been when the farewell tours began, or did they begin slightly?
No, I
Farewell
think
tour.
I think later than that because Keith Moon was still alive, and the incident in Cincinnati hadn't happened yet. So I think the farewell stuff comes more in the
Okay.
80s. I'm pretty sure it's more in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think they
Yeah.
were
You're
still
right.
a totally legitimate band up until that period, I think. So
And I'm sure now that you mentioned Keith Moon, I'm sure putting out The Kids Are All Right and Quadrophenia so close together probably had a lot to do with Moon's death too, and trying to.
yes, that's right. So Keith Moon died, I think, in '78, right? So that he definitely
Yeah.
died before Quadrophenia was out. For
Well, I
in
think
fact, I
did he
notice
die?
his name isn't listed as one of the musical directors or something, and it is the other three members of the band. I noticed that
I
in the
think he died
credits.
before. I think he died before Who Are You came out.
Oh, you're right. Or yeah, yeah. I think it had been recorded. He's on "Who Are You," but
Yeah,
then
and
it
didn't it
came
have
out. That's
something
right.
about there's a chair and it says this chair not to be removed on the cover, something
That's
like that.
right. Yeah, and actually
Uh,
Marcus reviewed that album for Rolling Stone and
did he?
he panned it and then I think they ran the review after Keith Moon's death and I remember it actually from the magazine at the time. They actually preceded his review with a little blurb in italics saying, this review was written prior to Keith Moon's death. The reviewer stands by his thoughts about the album or something like that because I think it was a
Yeah,
pretty negative review, I think. So but they
I
didn't
don't
pull
think
the
that.
review for that reason. So
Yeah, I don't think that album's reviewed well at all. I don't think Curse to Go gave it a good review. I don't
yeah,
know how Cream treated it, but and the title song we talked about it just doesn't hold up that well. I loved it when it
no,
came, but
the idea of it is neat, like because it's about him meeting punks or something in the
yes,
bar,
the
right? It's a
idea.
neat idea, but
Yeah,
it's pretty over the top and
probably that I yeah the idea was probably better done on, and even this song. I think this song dates better than Who Are You, but Townsend's Rough Boys
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
subject. Now, I want to say this Quadrophenia is so much better than Tommy, but then I better acknowledge I've never bothered to watch.
Oh,
I think,
really?
yeah, I don't think I could watch it.
I
I
think I've
mean,
seen it two or three times
oh
actually.
wow,
I
okay,
thought
is
like
that a fair
when I was
statement?
young oh no, it's definitely a fair statement. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it has some funny, memorable bits for sure. But it's completely
Okay,
ridiculous.
but I just when you watch Quadrophenia, you feel that Frank Rodham probably undoubtedly was familiar with Tom, and just is thinking,
Oh, it's far
I'm
away
gonna get this
far
right.
away from that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
honor the album and Townsend's.
The spirit of what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote out the whole story. If you get that booklet that comes along with the album,
Yeah.
and I think he definitely wanted not to make fall into the traps that Tommy fell into, which is basically it's like a freak show, right?
It's a
Obviously,
freak show. It's a total freak show. Yeah.
which is Ken Russell director. I mean, I've seen scenes from
Yeah.
Frank Rodham. Just looking and where people he really never did much of anything after this. He did make that film with Sting and I think Jennifer Beals, The Bride.
Okay. I barely
Um,
remember.
Phil Daniels, who plays Jimmy. Is that Jimmy? Do I have the same
Yep.
name?
Yep.
Yeah. He went on, I guess, I remember noticing this when it came out. He's in the Blur video for Park Life.
And he's the actual vocalist on the song. Yeah.
Oh, he sings on the
Yeah, like
recording.
he's the guy who does
That's
all
him.
he's the guy who does all the verses. Like,
I didn't
yeah,
know
mate,
that.
you should get your pork life and all this stuff.
Oh, wow, I didn't know
That's
that.
him. Yeah.
That's great.
I thought that
Um,
was a very brilliant move by them, actually.
yeah, no, that's perfect. He did seem to do a lot of British television after, but I don't think he ever made another film.
Yeah.
Leslie Ash, I don't know if you read up on her, who plays Steph in the film. She just, I think anybody that saw Quadrophenia at the time and you were our age just fell in love with
Oh
her.
yeah.
She had uh, such an ordeal later in life,
Mm.
one health thing after another. Toxoplasmosis when she was pregnant.
Wow.
And I don't even totally know what that is, but it's serious. She cracked ribs and ended up suing. I don't know if that was a car accident
Jeez.
or something.
Wow.
And then the worst of all, she had these collagen injections and it was completely botched. Really affected her appearance, and I guess she would get mercilessly made fun of in the British press if
Jeez.
she ended up
Wow.
suing. Yeah, she's still active, she's still working, but she seemed to have really traumatic
Jeez.
um, series of events happen later in life. And the other cast member, I meant to look him up. Jimmy has a couple of friends. He's got his mates. There's two of them, main guys in the film. I don't know who they are, and I didn't check in on what they went on to do.
I have to
But
throw in
it
a cast member myself, and I should have
okay.
looked up his name.
Sting, of
His
course, his first
Sting,
film.
yeah, but also Jimmy's father. I
Oh,
recognized him right away, and I don't know
okay.
his
Who's
name.
he?
I don't know his name, but you know what I recognize him from right
Oh,
away because it's one of my favorite movies. I've talked to you about this before. He's got a pretty big role in The Elephant Man.
oh, okay. Because he's in the
He's
scene I'm going to talk about. Yeah.
okay in The Elephant Man. He's really cruel. He plays like he plays the main guy who actually takes. Is it John Hurt? Is John Hurt that plays the Elephant Man? He
Yeah.
takes that character and he basically makes a freak show of him. He puts him in the circus, but he
Oh,
also gets abusive
that's
with him and stuff. And he's really good in the role. And actually, I liked him in Quadrophenia too. I thought he was very good. So yeah, I recognized him right away. I should have his name. I didn't look it up, but
interesting. Sting plays the Ace Face, right? The lead mod that
yeah,
everybody is in
yeah.
awe of, and it's a great moment. The way
I
they
have to
describe
say, you
what
made one little faux pas in your entry. I did read your entry
factual.
on it.
Okay, I'm sure I
It's
did.
not a
Yeah,
big deal, and don't
yeah.
republish your book. But you mentioned, I know what you're like, right? You you'll panic and you'll email everyone saying, "I'm sorry,
You've
have you got
let
a
you've
copy of
let
that?"
people in the fact that I do re-upload stuff when it's embarrassing enough. But
Um,
what did you notice?
but and it's very minor because I
Yeah,
actually would have thought the same thing. He's not actually dancing to Green
Louis
Onions. It's the song right after that. It's Louie Louie, where
Louis.
he
Okay,
does the actual that sort of weird shuffle he does or whatever. So
yeah, that's great.
but
And that's
that's
funny. I made that mistake because I mentioned that in my notes here that one of the highlights is Sting dancing to Louis Louis. I guess it just slipped my mind when I wrote that.
okay.
It's got the great moment in the film where Phil Daniels spots him as a bellboy, and he
Yeah,
just
I know. Yeah,
the
and he sings
bellboy.
along at one point. Bow boy.
Yeah,
That
I know.
coincides with this.
Such a letdown too. They
Yeah,
really bond that night where they get thrown in prison. Don't they share a cigarette?
yeah, yeah. Exactly. It's in the back of
Sting's real,
the
yeah.
paddy wagon. Yeah,
The paddy wagon. Sting is really good at.
he is. Yeah,
I don't have too many kind words to say about Sting, but he's excellent in the film,
yeah.
and it's just such a good film. The album. I mean, if you listen to the album on its own, first of all, it's hard for me to separate it, at least for a time. I don't think I'd ever heard the album until I saw the film. I think it was film album for me. Um, if I listen to the album without the film now, it's some of it, we talked about this. It's got the horns and you got songs that are a little heavy-handed.
Yeah.
I think it's Howard's favorite album ever.
Wow.
I think he's told me that.
Yeah.
Uh, but in the film, they work. He does a
Yeah, I
great job
agree.
with those songs, especially in terms of the soundtrack material from the album. I would single out the final scene where he goes off the cliff and they use Love Rain Over Me. It's done really well. You
Yeah.
know, it actually moved me a lot when I can't tell you how key the release of those three films, the two, not Over the Edge, but the two Who films and Rock and Roll High School, all close together, especially Quadrophenia. Quadrophenia meant so much to me at the time. Like it was my key film for 1979. I just,
Wow.
because it was all new to me, and it was like I was going through a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
at um and they just get the songs right. There's numerous ones, even 515 on the train. You listen to 515 on its own,
Yeah.
and the horns are like so loud. Works on the train where he's stuck between those two old guys, and he's flying on greenies or whatever it is he, downs
Yeah.
out of the bowl,
Yeah.
and his eyes are bulging out. I think he does a really good job with the source material. I think one song after another. I don't know that there's anything in that film where I go, oh, I could have done that better. And then you get into the soundtrack stuff that they add in the film. And I was thinking tonight, I really did approach it differently. I think and you might feel the same way. I think most people that see that film and you go, okay, what's the musical highlight? Put the Who songs aside if you had to choose one of the non-Who songs. I
Right.
think almost anybody would choose, and it does involve the Who. The sequence at the party where the guy Jamie goes and rips off. Is it Rhythm of the Rain? The Cascades, right?
Oh yeah, Rhythm of the Rain. I love
Rhythm of
that.
the Falling Rain, which is not a bad song.
I
Um,
like that one a lot actually, but
yeah, I like it. I think
it's sappy, but I've always liked that for some reason.
Sappy. It's not the one. What's the one that Marcus always singles out as the low point?
Yeah. Oh
Before
yeah, I know you're thinking of
it's not Rhythm of the Rain, but it's a song
no,
like
I'm
that.
almost surprised he doesn't like Rhythm of well, he didn't list it in Stranded because he has other
Yeah.
songs that sound kind of like that. But I know the one you mean, not Sugar Shack.
Yes, it's
Sugar
Sugar
Shack,
Shack.
yeah,
Jimmy
yeah.
Gilmore and the Fireballs, but that's sort of probably the same year. And Jimmy, they're having the party. And he rips it off and puts on My Generation,
Yeah.
and it's so great because they all start dancing, and the song that again, song that's so overplayed. You say I don't ever need to hear it again, but in that scene, it is you get the thrill of hearing it for the first time. It's brilliant. I think most people would say,
Before that song though, is that when they played the Crystals and Be My Baby? Like there is a
I think
party
there's some
scene.
Spectre in there too. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and
you're
that
right.
stuff I thought sounded really great as well. But go on.
Sounded great. And I'm thinking that the mods, they probably loved the Spectre stuff.
Oh
They didn't
yeah.
like Rhythm of the Rain, but I think they were huge on all the Spectre stuff. And another, I think it's a great scene when they're in I don't even know, they're like public baths, and his rocker friend.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't even think they know that they don't
They're singing. Yeah,
know each
yeah.
other, but they have
They don't know that they know each other yet. Yeah.
yeah, they have a battle royale where he's singing Bebop Alula, and what's Jimmy singing?
I
You
think
really
it's
got
that it's You Really Got Me.
you really
Yeah.
got me,
The Van
yeah,
Halen. Yeah.
and it's great. And then they realize, oh, we're friends.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. By the way,
That's
one thing funny about that scene, you
yeah,
must have noticed it a little bit. Like that's got to be like a very early example of a mainstream film showing
male
full
frontal
male
nudity. I
frontal
know.
nudity. I mean, it is underwater, but
You're right. You're right.
it's pretty visible.
Oh
So
yeah, I
I
certainly
thought that was
noticed it at the
hilarious.
time. I think with his friend, not with Jimmy.
Yeah, with
I think
no, I think it
he
was Jimmy. No, it was Jimmy.
was it okay.
Yeah, it was definitely
I
Jimmy.
seem to
So,
recall a friend who is like he's a real the mod rockers thing's fascinating because I
oh
guess
yeah,
the rockers
kind of
they're
like the
just
Louts, sort of, right? The
the louts
Rockers.
they're just so attached to 50s of the first incarnation of rock and
Yeah,
roll. And Dean Vincent is sort of their hero, and Eddie Cochran, not even necessarily Chuck. Obviously they worship Chuck Berry and Elvis and all of them, but they seem to really adopt Vincent and Eddie Cochran.
exactly.
Those
Yeah. It's
those
like the biker sort of stuff, right? Well, I mean,
exactly,
I
yeah.
can't not ask you, Phil. Are you a mod or a rockers?
You set me up
You're,
here. You know what I'm saying? I'm a mocker.
yeah.
Um, and it kind of it does make you think too. I think of Scorpio Rising in a way, right?
Yeah,
Because and yet they're weirdly enough, Scorpio Rising is like biker side of the rockers, but also with Kenneth Anger's weird taste in
yeah.
music. A lot of the Sugar Shack kind of stuff
I got to
mixed.
say, the one thing that did make me laugh a little bit was the chant of "We are the mods, we are the
They're the
mods."
ones who
But the
watch it.
reason that made me laugh is like, "We are the mods, we are the mods, we are the we are," and they go on because like the most one of the most ridiculous moments I think I experienced at a concert was seeing. It's almost too funny to say the jam at the concert hall, and all the crowd started saying, "We are the mods, we are," because they're into that whole thing, right? And this is in Toronto, circa 1982, and like
1980. I
like they're
know.
singing "We Are the Mods" at a jam show. Like
We're gonna go. We're gonna go
even at the
storm
time, I thought that was ludicrous.
after the show. We're gonna go storm Sunnyside.
Yeah, exactly.
The Jam where they totally
Oh, the
adopted.
jam. Yeah, I mean, Paul Weller worshiped Pete Townsend for
Yeah.
sure.
I'm
So
just thinking now about how cruel Jimmy treats the one girl, not
yeah,
Steph, but the one with the short cropped hair.
yeah,
She's awful to her. I remember one scene where she starts crying and storms off or something. She just
yeah.
gets used by all those guys. It's awful. So, I approach it differently. I chose the scene where Jimmy's getting ready to head off to Brighton Beach. I think he's just, I looked at the scene tonight on Criterion, and he's just had sex with Steph in that alleyway. And then he's getting his hair cut, and then he's at home, and it's funny where he walks in with the sopping wet jeans, and his dad's funny, the actor you mentioned. He said, what's this? Some new trend I don't know
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah.
He said, yeah, they're Levi's. Well, they're sopping wet.
Yeah.
And he's tripping all over the place. And then he hears the TV in the other room. And he runs in, and it's the Who on Ready, Steady, Go. And they're doing, and I always get the title wrong. Get the words mixed up. It's Anyhow, Anywhere, any,
Anyway, anyhow, anywhere.
yeah, however that's ordered. A song when I first bought Meaty, Meaty, Big and Bouncy, it wasn't one of my favorites. Over the years, it did grow to be a song I love, partly because of this clip. And Jimmy's trying to watch it. And it's such a great clip because the camera is like shaking along with Keith Moon going crazy on the drums,
Yeah, yeah,
Pete Townsend doing all that weird feedback. And Jimmy's trying to watch it, and his father is lurking behind him at the door to his room, and he's just making one derisive comment after another. He's saying,
mm,
well, what is this? Making fun of the singing, and he sounds like
yeah,
strangled ducks underwater. And Jimmy's getting so annoyed. He keeps looking back, but then he gets caught up in the clip again. He's drumming along with it fiercely. He keeps turning it up to drown out
yeah,
his. He just won't shut up. And I just think I like it because it's one of the greatest scenes. Like you don't see it very often. Somebody watching their favorite music. I don't know if I can
mm,
think. I'm
yeah,
sure there are other scenes like that. School of Rock a little bit, but he's teaching along with it. He's not really watching it.
yeah,
Or somebody just sits down and watches something, and you're seeing him, kind of get overwhelmed by the Who and his reaction to that transposed or contrasted with his father's
yeah. It's
reaction.
great. Yeah.
I love that scene. And it's such an unusual approach by the director to show how much the Who meant to these kids, and it just sets up the whole, all the mayhem right perfectly. Because
Hmm.
that's really the first time and the only time in the film we actually see the Who, right?
I think so. Yeah. Although it's
Just
interesting because you do see,
posters and
yeah, you see posters, and I like that. I
yeah,
mean, it really does just tying in with what you just said. I mean, I think the movie does a really good job of kind of getting into Pete Townsend always had that thing, right, where he was like, you know, the biggest fan of me as much as one of the greats of the 60s. He was also like the most articulate fan and stuff. And he always
yeah,
sort of had that thing about him, right? Like Nick Cohn used to write a lot about Pete Townsend. Like he understood the pop fan better than anyone else. Like he lived it and he knew how to articulate it. And I think the movie kind of gets at that. And with like just some of the iconography in the bedroom. I mean, it sounds like an obvious thing, but it's quite effectively done. And I think there was even one shot of Jimmy, and he just conveniently happened to be standing somewhere in his room, and Pete Townsend's kind of looking over his shoulder from some poster or something, and
which
it's a
reminded me, of
really great
course.
shot.
No, you're right, and reminded me immediately of Damone in his bedroom in Fast Times at Ridgemont High with the
Mm,
poster, the Annie Leibovitz shot of
yeah,
town. He doesn't have a poster. I think he actually cut out the thing from the issue of Rolling Stone. Today is a good day to be doing this because I was in a grade 3 foreign for Today in History. I did double Today in History. It's both Petula Clark's birthday today, and she's still alive. Um, Surprised me a little. And it's the birthday of not the blonde, but the other woman from ABBA. And I know Pete
Oh,
Townsend,
really?
he was an early, along with I think Elvis Costello. They were like two of the first people or pop people to come out and say, "Yeah, these guys are brilliant." I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
Townsend was one.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know
That's
Elvis
right. Yeah,
Costello.
I think we might have even quoted him in the quote book actually on ABBA.
Yeah. Have you ever read Pete Townsend? I know I mentioned before his review in that book that I use so many times all through the American Pie book, with all the reviews from 70, 71, 72. He reviewed Beady Big and Bouncy for Rolling Stone.
I think I remember hearing about that, but I
Oh,
don't think I've
it
seen it. And
is
I used to have the Rolling Stone DVD. I'd love to read that actually.
it's such a great review. I think I saved it somewhere. I'll send it to you. It's just so funny because to have Pete Townsend reviewed, he's just reflecting on how the songs were written.
Wow, that's great.
He's such a good writer.
Yeah.
Uh, Surprise Rolling Stone. This was kind of a one-off, and he would have been great as a semi-regular reviewer.
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
love to like review a Dylan album or Rolling Stones album or something
That's
because
great. Yeah.
like what you said, he was the ultimate fan.
And he
Uh,
was extremely articulate. Like he gave great interviews at that time too. He could really talk about what the music meant beyond just like what he how they recorded their songs and stuff. He always had ideas just about how music transmitted over the radio and how it impacted people's lives and stuff. It's really quite interesting. So
no, I love reading, listen, and and you can't fail to mention the ugly stuff he got involved in.
yeah,
And he did, he had a rationale for it. He seems to have been he was able to kind of put in the past, but not really. You can't not think about it when you talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
it. It's just weird.
I got to bring
Uh,
up one. You and I always do this, and
yeah,
when I saw it last night, I went, "Oh yeah!" And I remembered the second time I saw the movie. I even noticed it then. There is one really bad anachronism, I
anachronism.
guess. Yeah, it's in the party scene, and they're all dancing to those great records and stuff. They show a Who album like beside the turntable. The problem is
I know.
it's the twofer of the
It's the
Quick One and
twofer.
Who Sellout,
Who sell
which
out?
came
I
out,
know.
and I looked it up last night. It's like, no, it acts that double was released in like 74 or something, right? Like, why would they get that one detail wrong? I mean, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's just so strange. Like, and even
I'm
those two
positive.
albums came out later
Yeah,
than what this
I'm
movie
positive,
was.
Scott. I mentioned that in the blog entry.
Oh, you okay?
I,
You probably did. Okay,
and it is
it's
weird
just weird.
because loading your note experience. I don't want my note experience. It is weird because it's not like they could not have tracked down an original
No,
album.
that's what I was thinking. Like, you just
No,
couldn't get the cover of My Generation or something. Like, it's just bizarre. Like,
you know, I'm sure I told you for the long. I had the original Who Sell Out. It was in my parents' pile in the basement. Got ruined, and then I spent years wanting to rebuy it, acquire it, but I wanted an original copy. I resisted for years
wow.
buying that twofer.
Yeah, oh
I
yeah,
can't,
quick one sellout is the one I bought to hear those albums. I
and
never
I
had an
should have
original copy
because
of those.
I
So
should have because when I finally got a quick one on CD, I love a quick one. It's got two or three of my favorite lesser known songs. I can't think of the titles off the top of my head, but it's got two or three just amazing songs. I finally did get an original copy of Who Sell Out off the wall from Vortex for $7. Like
wow.
it wasn't mint perfect, but it totally playable and good shape, and that's why Vortex was such a great store.
I was trying to figure out if Quadrophenia was based in a specific year, and I don't think they ever say, but my assumption was like probably like 65 at the latest, I think. Because I think
Yeah,
I don't think the mod thing was still going strong by like 66 or something.
no,
I
I think
mean,
that was very much a 63, 64 thing. I don't
okay,
even know.
64 even. Yeah, that's
But
64 is more likely. Yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting. Again, I always have an ear out for this. They don't mention in Quadrophenia in the film. I don't think the
I know what you're going to
Beatles
say. The
or the
Beatles.
Rolling
Yeah.
Stones
Yeah.
Certainly not Dylan, which makes sense, but I'm kind of surprised the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or even the Kinks don't get mentioned.
Well,
It's
and
like,
I was thinking about that. Well, they
yeah,
do do the song. You
they
really
do.
got
You
me.
really got
But I
me.
was thinking about the Beatles thing. Yeah, it's odd, but I think because
Beatles wouldn't
I
make.
well, not only that, but I think part of the whole thing with the mods, right, is like they're just this whole self-contained world that they're so into
Yeah,
their own thing, and
but they
anything
don't
else
even
is kind of foreign to that. So
they don't even mention the Small Faces, who I think were sort
yeah,
of the
yeah,
weren't they the other ultimate mod
yeah,
band?
probably. But they, yeah, I wonder, yeah, when did they start putting out records though? You're right, they were part of that
Yeah.
mod thing
I
for
mean,
sure.
what am I
So
talking about? They're not obligated to mention the Small Faces,
yeah,
but who were the other big mod bands? There was those two. I
jeez, I
think
don't
that
know.
band, The Creation, were
I was
or
gonna
the
say like that, but then
that's
you get
something different
kind of in the little more obscure
because there
probably, right?
was the
I mean,
whole
they're into soul music, the mod fans.
yeah,
They
they were.
listen to a lot of soul, right?
Um,
So
there was this whole thing called the psych thing that comes along, and I think the
right.
creation is part of that. I don't know. They've got they're so genre crazy in Britain, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Get all those grime and all those cross dance things and
No,
trip hop.
exactly. Million different subgenres, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, just in summing up, it is a great film. The three films we talked about tonight. If I had to rate them all, I'm going to give Quadrophenia comes close to a 10 for me. Rock and Roll High
Really
School,
good.
has its limitations. I'd still give it a solid 8, 9. Over the Edge, it's not quite up to the other two for me, I think, summing up. But they make a great trio, you know.
Yeah. No, I
And they,
really like Quadrophenia. And again, I was just surprised how much of it came back to me instantly. So I must have seen it at least a couple times, but it obviously did leave quite the impression,
yeah, for
the
sure.
first couple times I saw it. And I agreed with you about yeah, I don't like I think I eventually bought the Quadrophenia album and I don't think I've ever even listened to the whole thing. I'm sure at least half that record I don't even know. But I really did like the way it was used in the film. I mean, it's
I loved it when I bought it, just for, and we should point out that they also put out um, a soundtrack to the film, which
that's
was
right.
odd. It was a double album, which the first album was the Who songs, and then the second album
Right.
was all non-Who stuff. It was
Yeah,
kind of
I think I might have owned that at the time, but I don't anymore for some reason. I don't
yeah.
know whatever happened to that album, but
Jimmy's
yeah.
on the cover, right? Is
Yep,
Rhythm
yep, and it's got the Rhythm of the Rain and all those other
of the
songs
Rain.
on the
Um,
second disc. Yeah.
before we just end it, was there Green Onions we mentioned? Was there any other notable pop songs besides that? We had the
I should
Spectre,
have wrote
Rhythm of
them
the Rain, Louie
down.
Louie. Um,
I didn't. No, I think those are the main ones. Oh, the only other
those
note
were
I
the main.
took was I thought the Sting dancing to Louie Louie
Yeah,
reminded me a little bit of Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. Just the way everyone is kind of like
everyone's
the
going to.
whole room is kind of suddenly like, oh, he's on the dance floor now. Like
Yes,
everyone get back kind of thing. I thought that was pretty great. But
and he's
no,
a
I
great
didn't hear
dancer.
any other. Oh yeah, he's good. He's good
And
in it.
that's where Jimmy does the dives off the
Yeah, yeah.
balcony.
He wants
Right?
to get the attention. Whatever. Yeah,
Okay, thanks, Scott. And we got 5 more to go after this. Okay,
sounds good.
we won't make it. We're not going to make it by the end of the year,
No,
but
I don't think so. But that's
we'll
okay.
creep a little bit into 2024
There you go.
or five, whatever. We're getting near the end. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Okay,
Take care,
talk to you
Scott.
later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.